Welcome to Module 2. In Module 1, we mapped the entire trade finance landscape. Now we go deep, and we start where most trade finance careers start, the letter of credit. You already know what an LC does at a conceptual level. It replaces counterparty trust with bank credit. But knowing what it does and knowing how it works are two different things. In this lecture, we go inside the mechanics, the parties, the flow, the principles, and what an LC actually looks like when it lands in your inbox. Every LC transaction involves at least four parties. The applicant is the importer, the buyer who initiates the LC. This is typically your client if you are sitting on a trade finance desk. The applicant goes to their bank and asks them to issue an LC in favor of the seller. The issuing bank is the applicant's bank. When it issues the LC, it takes on a payment obligation, a commitment that if the seller presents compliant documents, the bank will pay. This is not a soft commitment. It is irrevocable from the moment of issuance. The beneficiary is the exporter, the seller in whose favor the LC is issued. The beneficiary is the party who will ultimately present documents and receive payment. And the advising bank is typically a bank in the exporter's country. Its job is to authenticate the LC to confirm it appears genuine and forward it to the beneficiary. Importantly, the advising bank takes on no payment obligations simply by advising the LC. It is a messenger, not a guarantor. Here is something that often surprises people who are new to trade finance. Before the issuing bank will touch an LC application, the applicant must have an approved credit facility. An LC is a contingent liability. The moment a bank issues it, the bank is committed to pay if documents comply. It does not matter whether the applicant can fund the payment at that point. The bank's obligation is independent. So the bank must first assess whether it is comfortable with that exposure. This means a full credit assessment, the applicant's financials, the nature of the goods, the country risk of the transaction, and the strength of the underlying trade. The LC amount utilizes the applicant's trade finance limit from the date of issuance, not from the date of payment. This is an important distinction when clients ask why their LC limits are being consumed even before they have received the goods. Once the credit is approved and the LC is ready to be issued, the issuing bank sends it to the advising bank via SWIFT, specifically using a message format called the MT700, the standard electronic format for issuing a documentary credit. But here is something that rarely gets explained in textbooks. Before any SWIFT message can be exchanged between two banks, they must have an RMA in place. RMA stands for Relationship Management Application. It is a bilateral authorization on the SWIFT network. Bank A grants Bank B permission to send and receive specific message types, and Bank B does the same in return. Without an RMA, the MT700 simply cannot be delivered. The message will be rejected before it reaches its destination. This is why banks maintain correspondent banking networks, and it is why, in practice, LCs sometimes route through intermediate correspondent banks, particularly when the issuing bank and the beneficiary's local bank do not have a direct RMA relationship. Now let us walk through the full transaction. The buyer and seller agree on a sale contract and specify that payment will be made by letter of credit. The applicant goes to the issuing bank, submits an LC application detailing the amount, expiry date, required documents, and shipment terms. The bank approves it against the applicant's credit limit and issues the LC to the advising bank via SWIFT MT700. The advising bank authenticates the LC and forwards it to the beneficiary. The beneficiary reviews it carefully, checking that every condition is something they can actually meet. If any term is problematic, this is the moment to request an amendment, before shipment, not after. The beneficiary ships the goods, collects the full document set, invoice, packing list, bill of lading, insurance certificate, any other documents specified in the LC, and presents them to the advising or nominated bank within the presentation period stated in the LC. The bank checks the documents and forwards them to the issuing bank. The issuing bank has 5 banking days under UCP 600 Article 14 to examine the presentation and decide whether to honor or refuse. If the documents comply, the bank pays, accepts the draft, or incurs its deferred payment obligation and releases the documents to the applicant. The applicant uses the original bill of lading to collect the goods at the port and repays the bank under the import loan or trust receipt arrangement. Some banks offer an informal pre-vetting service where the beneficiary can submit documents before the official presentation for a quick check. The bank provides non-binding feedback on potential discrepancies. This is not standardized, it is not part of UCP 600, and not all banks offer it. But where it is available, it is a useful tool for reducing discrepancy rates on first presentation. Two additional parties appear in more complex transactions. A confirming bank adds its own independent payment undertaking to the LC. The beneficiary now has two banks committed to pay, the issuing bank and the confirming bank. Confirmation is typically requested when the beneficiary has concerns about the issuing bank's credit standing or the political risk of the issuing bank's country. The confirming bank charges a confirmation fee for taking on this risk. A nominated bank is a bank authorized by the issuing bank to pay, accept, or negotiate on its behalf. When a nominated bank acts on its nomination, when it pays or discounts, it takes on the issuing bank's payment risk. This is the risk I referred to in Module 1 when we discussed LC discounting. How documents physically reach the bank varies. In standard presentation, the beneficiary presents to the advising or nominated bank in their country, and that bank forwards to the issuing bank. In network presentation, the beneficiary presents to a local branch of the advising bank in their own city, useful where the advising bank's main office is in a different location. The branch reviews and forwards the documents internally, saving days of physical transit time. In direct presentation, the beneficiary mails documents directly to the issuing bank, bypassing the advising bank entirely. This is faster in theory, but removes the local support of the advising bank, and the beneficiary bears the risk of documents being lost in transit. Not all banks offer these options. It depends on the institution. Under an LC, there are 4 ways payment can be structured. Sight payment means the bank pays immediately on compliant presentation. Acceptance means the bank accepts a usance draft, making an irrevocable commitment to pay on maturity, and the draft can then be discounted for immediate liquidity. Deferred payment commits the bank to pay on a fixed future date without a draft being issued, and negotiation is where the nominated bank purchases the documents and draft from the beneficiary, taking on the issuing bank's payment risk and advancing funds to the exporter against that risk. 3 legal principles sit beneath every LC transaction, and you need to know all 3 cold. The first is the autonomy or independence principle. The LC is completely independent of the underlying sale contract. If the goods turn out to be defective, if the commercial contract is disputed, if the buyer simply changes their mind, none of that matters. If documents comply, the bank pays. Full stop. This independence is what makes the LC bankable. It is also what makes it attractive to fraudsters, which we will examine in Lecture 10. The second is strict compliance. Documents must comply strictly with the LC terms, not approximately, not substantially. A description that reads differently from the LC wording, a missing endorsement, a date inconsistency. These are all grounds for refusal. UCP 600 and the ICC Banking Commission's published opinions provide guidance on where the line sits between a genuine discrepancy and a trivial one, but the default standard is strict. The third is the documentary nature of the LC. Banks examine documents, not goods. The issuing bank has no way of knowing, and no obligation to verify, whether the cargo matches what the documents describe. The documents are the transaction as far as the bank is concerned. When an LC arrives via SWIFT, it is structured in numbered fields. Field 20 is the documentary credit number. Field 31C is the date of issue. Field 31D is the expiry date and place. Field 32B is the currency and amount. Field 39A sets the tolerance, typically plus or minus 5%. Field 41 specifies where the LC is available and by what payment method. Fields 43P and 43T state whether partial shipments and transshipment are permitted. Field 44C gives the latest shipment date. Fields 44E and 44F give the ports of loading and discharge. Field 45A describes the goods. Field 46A lists the documents required. This is the heart of the LC, the specification that the beneficiary must meet precisely. Field 47A contains additional conditions. Field 48 sets the presentation period, and Field 49 gives the confirmation instructions, whether the advising bank may confirm, must confirm, or should advise without confirmation. Many exporters assume that receiving an LC means they will definitely get paid. That is not correct. They will get paid only if their documents comply strictly with the LC terms. An exporter who ships without first checking whether the LC conditions are workable or who cannot produce the exact documents specified can end up with a valid shipment and no payment. The LC works because it inserts bank credit and bank discipline into a transaction between two parties who may have no reason to trust each other. Credit approval, RMA, four parties, one structured flow, three non-negotiable principles. In the next lecture, we look at the many variants of the LC: site, usance, transferable, back-to-back, revolving, and the specific circumstances where each one is used.